At 4 a.m. on December 5, 2025, a Russian liquefied natural gas terminal worth hundreds of millions of dollars did not just catch fire. It erupted into an inferno that burned for 3 days straight. More than 20 storage tanks were destroyed. 70% of the facility's total capacity was wiped out. Russian export revenues from this terminal alone were generating $3 million per day. Ukraine's security service had been watching, planning, and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. When that moment came, they unleashed drones that turned Russia's strategic energy asset into burning wreckage. The Temryuk seaport sits on the Sea of Azov in Krasnodar Krai, southern Russia. This facility was not some minor industrial site. It was one of Russia's critical LNG export terminals, processing up to 400,000 tons of liquefied natural gas annually. The terminal, operated by the Maktrin Nafta company, handled transfers from rail cars and tank containers to specialized gas carriers that shipped Russian energy to global markets. Every ton of LNG exported generated revenue that funded Russia's war machine. The Security Service of Ukraine had marked this facility as a high-value target months earlier. At approximately 2:30 a.m. on December 5th, Ukrainian drone operators from the Elite Alpha Special Operations Unit began their final preparation. The mission had been planned for weeks. Intelligence teams had mapped the terminal layout, identified storage tank locations, and calculated optimal strike angles. Weather conditions were favorable with minimal wind that would not disperse the explosive vapor. Russian air defenses in the region had been focused on threats from the north and west, expecting attacks from Ukrainian territory across the border. What they did not anticipate was a strike coming from the Sea of Azov itself. Ukrainian long-range drones lifted off from concealed positions at 3:45 a.m. These were not small commercial quadcopters. They were purpose-built unmanned aerial vehicles capable of carrying significant explosive payloads across hundreds of kilometers. Each drone was equipped with GPS guidance systems, thermal imaging cameras, and shaped charge warheads designed to penetrate industrial infrastructure. The flight path had been programmed to avoid known Russian radar installations and air defense zones. The drones flew low over the Sea of Azov, using the water surface to mask their approach from ground-based radar systems. Russian air defense operators at Temryuk were monitoring their screens at 4 a.m. when the first alerts appeared. Multiple small contacts were approaching from the southwest at low altitude. The duty officer attempted to activate warning systems, but the drones were already closing rapidly. Within seconds, the first wave reached the terminal perimeter. Ukrainian operators guided the drones toward their primary targets using real-time video feeds transmitted back to command centers. The first drone struck Storage Tank 7 at 4:03 a.m. The shaped charge penetrated the tank's steel shell, igniting the liquefied gas inside. LNG burns at extremely high temperatures when exposed to air and ignition sources. The initial explosion created a fireball that rose 500 meters into the night sky. The thermal shockwave was so intense that it triggered automatic fire suppression systems across the entire facility. But those systems were designed for ordinary industrial fires, not coordinated drone strikes. The second and third drones hit tanks 12 and 15 within the next 40 seconds. Each impact created chain reactions as pressurized gas vaporized and ignited. Storage tanks located adjacent to the initial strikes began heating from the radiant thermal energy. LNG storage requires cryogenic conditions, maintaining temperatures around -162 degrees Celsius. When external heat compromises that cooling, the liquid rapidly converts to gas and expands 600 times its original volume. The expanding gas cloud was searching for any ignition source. Russian firefighting teams arrived at 4:08 a.m., but they faced an impossible situation. The terminal was engulfed in flames across multiple points. Standard firefighting foam was ineffective against LNG fires of this magnitude. The heat was so intense that firefighters could not approach within 100 meters of the burning tanks. Communication systems had been damaged by the initial blasts, preventing a coordinated response. Ukrainian drones continued their assault. Drones 4 through 8 targeted the facility's pumping stations and transfer equipment at 4:12 a.m. These strikes were tactical precision, aimed at preventing any shutdown or containment. Fuel pumps that could have isolated burning tanks were destroyed. Emergency shutoff valves were rendered inoperable. Fire suppression infrastructure was systematically eliminated. Ukrainian planners understood that maximum damage required not just igniting the LNG, but preventing any Russian response from limiting the destruction. By 4:20 a.m., the fire had spread to more than 20 of the terminal's 30 storage tanks. Each tank held approximately 200 cubic meters of liquefied natural gas. The combined thermal output created what witnesses described as artificial daylight visible from kilometers away. Satellite thermal imaging systems detected the blaze from orbit, showing heat signatures far exceeding normal industrial operations. The fire burned with such intensity that steel support structures began to warp and collapse. Russian regional authorities declared a state of emergency at 4:45 a.m. 70 firefighting personnel and 18 fire trucks were deployed, but they could only establish defensive perimeters to prevent the fire from spreading to nearby residential areas. The LNG terminal itself was a total loss. Ukrainian sources monitoring Russian communications intercepted panicked radio traffic as facility managers realized the scale of destruction. One transmission reportedly stated that nothing could be saved and personnel should focus on evacuation. The fire burned continuously for 3 full days. The Ukrainian General Staff confirmed on December 8th that approximately 70% of the Temryuk terminal's total fuel tank capacity had been destroyed. This was not just tactical damage, but a strategic impact. Russia's LNG export capacity from the Sea of Azov region had been crippled. The terminal would require months of reconstruction, assuming Russia could source replacement equipment and materials under international sanctions. Analysis from energy market experts revealed the broader implications. The Temryuk terminal was exporting liquefied natural gas worth approximately $3 million per day. Over the course of a year, that represented over $1 billion in potential revenue. The destruction meant immediate loss of export capacity and long-term disruption to Russian energy markets. European buyers who had been receiving LNG from this terminal would need alternative sources, further isolating Russian energy from global markets. Ukrainian security service sources emphasized that this operation was part of a systematic campaign targeting Russian oil and gas infrastructure. Every facility that funds the war against Ukraine is a legitimate target. The SBU will continue these strikes to degrade Russia's ability to generate revenue from energy exports. The Temryuk strike demonstrated Ukraine's growing capability to conduct deep strikes against strategic targets far from the front lines. The cost analysis was stark. Ukrainian drones used in the operation cost several $1,000s each. The damage inflicted exceeded $650 million in destroyed infrastructure, lost export capacity, and long-term economic impact. This represented one of the most cost-effective strikes of the war, achieving strategic results with minimal resource investment. For Russia, the Temryuk disaster exposed critical vulnerabilities in their rear area security. If a major LNG terminal located hundreds of kilometers from Ukrainian-controlled territory could be destroyed so completely, what other strategic assets were at risk? Russian military planners faced uncomfortable questions about how to defend sprawling energy infrastructure against Ukrainian long-range strike capabilities.